Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live this Wednesday, July 20th. My name is Kim Lantis, and it's my pleasure to be with you here again today. Co-hosting with me is America Guerrero.
Hey.
Hey, America. Beautiful red lips, beautiful red shirt. I'm living.
Thank you.
Yes. And today's guest, I always get super excited when we have female leadership representation, is Surbhi Rathore, CEO, and I believe founder, right, of Symbl.ai. Surbhi, it's our pleasure to be talking to you today.
Likewise. So glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So today's topic, and there she is, like a bell, my daughter Zoe saying, hey, Dojo Live's on, time to interrupt. Just one moment. I'm sorry, summer vacation and a 4-year-old, you know how it goes. So what we're going to be talking about is machine learning, human conversation. But before we get into that topic, we'd love to get to know a lot more about you, Surbhi. If you could please tell us your background, your passion, and sort of what's led up to where you are today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, so nice to meet everyone virtually. I'm Surbhi Rathore. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Symbl. My background is in software development. I spent the majority of my last 14, 15 years building products, getting products with customers, working with customers to improve the experiences. And a lot of that work was done around customer interactions at scale in the telco space primarily. And fate or destiny brings you to where you want to be. But I would truly say in my case, it has been a little truthful because I was unaware how much I was obsessed about conversations in general. And my whole career, I worked in the space around conversations, whether it was building kind of like a contact center experience, or it was getting to market a conversational AI chatbot or a virtual assistant, and working with customers to understand how they adopt it. And it all led me to building Symbl here. And what we are doing here now is enabling developers to understand human conversations like the one that we are having right now. So talk about audio, talk about video, messages, emails, so much of that flowing around right now. We're in this era of digital explosion. And that's kind of where we are.
I love it. Thank you. I'm all about the conversation as well, probably to my detriment at times. So let's talk exactly about Symbl, the problem that you're solving. Conversation is your passion. So what does Symbl do with that?
Yeah, so we enable businesses that are building products or solutions around communication, whether they are, products like the one that we are using right now to broadcast a live session, or meetings or sales conversations or contact center experiences, integrate machine learning and AI into that in order to be able to understand conversations contextually and transform it into smaller nuggets of intelligence like topics and sentiments and empathy and entities and personal information and actions and questions, and summarize it and so much more. So it's basically looking at a very new stream of data, which is the conversation data, which is available in abundance around us, and really understanding how can we unlock the potential in that data and then use it for the growth of our businesses, whether it is to enhance your customer experience, to personalize the customer experience, or to automate actions and remove the redundancy from humans and let them, explore their creative side and remove the redundant elements and give it to machines to do. So those are the things that we operate in.
Very cool. I can see that the use cases for this, they appear endless, but I'm really excited to get into the conversation to kind of deep dive a bit more into that. Before we do, let's kind of just introduce the topic that you chose today, Surbhi. America, what's that?
The intersection of machine learning and human conversations. And the question is, how can businesses take advantage to those conversation data generated every day to unlock the next stage of growth? Why is it relevant, this topic, for today's show?
Yeah, I think we are now settled in this new way of working. I would say we're still evolving after the pandemic and remote work. I'm sure we will.
Kids interrupting.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm sure we will evolve, continue to adapt to the new way. But I think we're all adapting, right? And so is our customers. They're also adapting. And you don't know the way that they used to buy products 2 years back. Is that still relevant? The way that we were doing customer support, is that still on point with customer expectations? The way that we are running meetings with different interruptions at home or at offices, like how do we really make sure that we focus on the conversation and not on other tasks that and create a great experience of that conversation and continue to learn and improve from those conversations, but most importantly learn to adapt. And it's the this is the time where it's most relevant at this time, because being settled into how to scale businesses in a remote first or a hybrid first environment, there are so many functions that also need to evolve and adapt, and we are still behind it. And one of the core reasons is that we're still, as businesses, not capitalizing on the way that customers express their preferences when you talk to them. When you talk to a customer, they'll express that, yeah, I usually like making new purchases during the summers, and let's get back to it at that time. But that information never goes to marketing teams. That a product feedback never goes to product teams, and it sits there either lost in transition because conversations are not recorded or stored or transcribed, or it will reach when the opportunity is missed and it's no longer relevant. We can't afford that right now. We're at a stage at a business where every expression of that customer, every voice of that customer matters and creates a flywheel effect in the business if it is transitioned to the right place and the right time. And that's why real time is so critical. But we are not even there at real time. We're still struggling to even understand that should we be really using conversations. And that's why it is so critical. And I feel about it so passionately, that if you hear what your customers are saying and if you listen to what their needs are and truly understand it, we can build a much better business than what it is today.
That's brilliant. I have a question. You said sales conversations. For example, I have in this first approach with a prospect, and the call is going to be recorded, and the AI is going to help me how to improve, right? What are the elements that are going to help me to improve that? Maybe my accent, or maybe I don't know, how does it work? Because I'm thinking with Grammarly that you can improve your writing, and the app is going to help you how to do it with some recommendations. Is it like the same but with the voice in this case?
Yeah, great question, America. And I think I'll ask a follow-up question to you to answer that do you really think conversations are standardized, or would you think that conversations are personalized?
Personalized, and it change every day.
Does it
And
change?
when we try to standardize them, it crashes and it burns.
That's
right?
why cold call, cold email never works. But it works when you induce your personalization into it, when you're able to talk about things that you understand the context of that conversation, or to the country that you're talking to, the culture that you're talking in, or the product that you're referring to, or the industry that you're talking about, or even the persona of the customer that you're talking with. A CEO will have a completely different way of conversation than a VP product, than an engineering manager. And it's really hard to standardize recommendations for conversations, even if it is in the same industry.
Right. And I
Right.
think that's a really good point. Like talking to a CEO, they tend to be people who are my experience, people who are very busy. And so their answers tend to be very short and to the point. And if you're not used to that, it can be perceived as perhaps aggressive or rude, or I'm doing something wrong, or they don't like me. But the context really is they're busy and they just need to move on. And it's not personal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the context of the conversation is so much more than just the content. It's about how you speak, it's about the empathy that you show, it's about your tone, it's about what you were doing before and after, and where are you really sitting and talking, and what's your body language. It's just so many things, and it's hard to comprehend, which is why when we built Symbl, this was a big element of the platform, that we cannot standardize intelligence from conversation, but we can give tools to developers and businesses to personalize it with the understanding. So you can build, a higher importance to empathy in your conversation versus someone else would build a higher directness and someone else would build a higher engagement. And based on the type of conversation, you can configure this on how you want to recommend within your own real-time recommendations that you're making during a sales call, or that could apply to any other call as well.
That's fascinating. So how does it work? Like, exactly who is your customer and what's my interaction with Symbl look like?
Yeah, we're an API platform. So if you're a developer or a product person who's building a product, you would come to Symbl, use our APIs, easily integrate it into your voice, text, video workflows that you have, pass us a recorded file or a link to a URL or like a streaming audio in real time, or even text like a transcript or email or chat messages. And Symbl will analyze that in real time as well as asynchronously and give you back all the intelligence. But the more important part is in a very connected way. So that you don't have to execute multiple API calls to get sentiments and to get topics and to get action items. You process your conversation once, and there's a unified API that runs on top of our state-of-the-art machine learning models that understand conversations and give you back all the outcomes. We give you recommendations on how to use the outcomes in the best possible way, but at the end of the day, you have full control and customization that you can build in, whether it is the experience you want to create or how you want to show the recommendation or even what types of recommendations you want to show. Like everything is in your control.
Interesting. And then is this, I don't know if this is the right word, but like compoundable, like it's at individual conversational level, but then also cross multiple conversations?
That's right. It's a programmable platform. You can understand one conversation or many. You can cross-link a customer journey based on every single touch point that they've had for the last 2 years as they've interacted with your company and understand trends out of that interaction and patterns that you will miss out on. Or you can monitor hundreds and thousands of high-volume workloads in real time across all your contact center in a single dashboard and still keep on top of topics which are running low on sentiment and needs attention, or there's a compliance and a risk issue, or monitor your data governance, like all of that.
Nice. You mentioned now call centers a couple times, and I know that the user of this is on the development side, but the recommendations that come out of it, is this also recommendations given to perhaps individuals, like certain customer service reps or sales reps, or like how this individual can improve, and also how we as an entire team can improve, or marketing, let's shift this way? What are the types of recommendations that are coming out of this discovery?
Yeah, this is exactly why I said that programmable and personalization are two core aspects of the platform. So developers build using programmability and personalize the experience to the functions that are receiving the recommendations and actions and things like that. So the developer can build and configure different experiences for different personas within the same company and organization, or in the product for which the product is targeted for. So you can create those recommendations for sales reps versus customer support versus product team, customer success teams, and really make sure information that is generated from conversation can be looked upon by the lens of every function. We don't need to regenerate conversation for every function. We just need to distill the same conversation and give insights which are relevant to every function, because every function has something to learn from the same conversation, and that will be different. It cannot be the same.
And I love this. I think going back to what you mentioned, maybe like a sales rep is talking, you're like, no, I would prefer, those types of things in the springtime or whatever. And maybe that sales rep is going to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to reach back out in the spring. But it's information that the marketing team might utilize that they would never even be aware of. Fantastic. So let's talk more about the machine learning component and the personalization, the customization, the human component of what you're doing, and how you're able to kind of work through this. I think at the beginning of the show, you alluded a bit to the possibilities of where this is going, right? And the reality maybe of where we are. So can we talk a little bit about the potential of machine learning and the reality of where we are right now? How do you foresee that playing out, and what's maybe a time span that you see?
Yeah, I think understanding the different dimensions of context is how we will continue to expand. What dimensions of context we understand today is how we define the journey. We understand today the content of the conversation, and then maybe the tone, and also a little bit. Eventually, we can use body language and facial expressions to inform it. We don't do that today at Symbol, but I'm just saying, like, eventually, as the system grows, there are different dimensions of context that can be utilized to inform what you infer out of this understanding. And all the different types of inferences will involve the multiple types of predictions or multiple types of tasks that you can create that will continue to evolve. And what will evolve is the contextual dimensions. But I think that's the journey that we all need to take. At the end of the day, everything will change the experience, and the experiences will evolve as well. So today, like, you can show live captioning, how sentiments and empathy is evolving. I can give indicators to make sure that we can keep track of the key agenda items while we are on the call. And if we miss something, I can get prompted. If there's a question that was unanswered, it can be prompted to me to make sure that I address that question, because it is an important part of the experience, and things like that. So you can do a lot with tone and content at this point of time, generally across the industry. And I think there are a lot of use cases around that. And we will see as the market matures. There also has to be explainability of the AI that you put into places, and I think that creates trust with the end users, to almost let them know about why we are generating what we generate, like what is our understanding thesis that actually generates this, and how can you continue to give inputs and feedback to improve it, because AI is a journey, right? And specifically conversation intelligence, because it's such a new space, people are still struggling to understand, can you really go beyond transcription? Like, is that really possible? And what can I do after transcription? Like, that answer is still not standardized yet, even from a technology standpoint. So I think there's a lot of work ahead of us, and a lot of work that we need to do in terms of the maturity of the market, which means accepting new technologies, coming on board with on the journey, uh, getting iterative value over a period of time, and testing on experiences. Even if our infrastructure gets standardized, the experience will evolve, and experiences is what will differentiate products and businesses, and that's kind of what we need to learn,
And
and store data. And make sure, because if that's lost, you don't have anything to work on. So
And so much data.
and every minute that you're not doing something with that data, it's a lost opportunity. It's never going to come back, because there's no way you can retrieve what you already spoken is lost.
And with your sales teams or with marketing or engineering, do you use this API to improve your communication skills? How has been
Amongst
your
yourself.
experience? Exactly. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we do adopt for our product a lot, and I think every business should, and every startup should. They should really see how they can use their product for their own benefits. Unfortunately, we are an API platform. We're not a product company, so we ended up building our own systems internally as workflows, and we still do that. Every time we process a sales conversation, we automatically generate a video summary out of it, and that summary helps us inform and go back and share with our product stakeholders, so that everyone takes just like 5 minutes to go to the right topic and not listen to the 50 minutes of calls. So we save a lot of time. So we implement Symbol today from from a time save perspective. That was our internal use case. And obviously there are so many use cases around real-time recommendations, but we don't have a really big sales team right now. So that wasn't a really big important need. The big important need was aggregating data, understanding patterns of data, giving product feedback and requests that customers are giving back to the product team, making sure that there are some standard compliances that we can address in terms of like talking about the product roadmap, like to which customers do you want to talk completely, without NDAs, with NDAs, things like that. So those are some of the things that we implemented.
Yes. And this same sort of insight of recognizing your own needs, is this sort of a consultation element that happens with your users as well to help them realize how they can best use your API?
Yeah, great question. Because I think the maturity of the industry is very fragmented at this point of time. There are some companies that exactly know what they want, and they will be like, well, we want to build a real time assist. and we want to build it as part of our custom programmable solution that we are building with Twilio Flex, and we want to set it up internally. They will exactly know what to do. But there are some companies that they just don't know what they don't know, and that's totally fair. Like, we're still learning. And so at that time, we will work with them, help them put together a roadmap for the next 2 years or 1 year by which they can bring all these technologies to market, which is very well aligned with their industry. Also, we're working with hundreds and thousands of kind of like developers across the board, as well as like hundreds of customers. So we understand the patterns. We understand that like, what are we seeing across customer service versus webinars versus sales platforms or use cases versus recruitment or gaming or healthcare or ed tech. There are just so many use cases. It's insane. But yeah, it's so much fun. Every time a developer will sign up on the platform and they'll build something and we'll learn something new, and that just like makes me personally so happy, because even if we go one step at a time and solve one use case at a time, there's so much value that gets generated in the ecosystem.
Lovely. Talking about exciting and being excited and growing, pre-show, we were talking a bit about our backgrounds. I know that your background is quite varied, that you've spent a lot of time living and visiting a variety of countries and cultures. And I want to touch on that element of communication and human conversation, and how maybe I see this, the further in the future with machine learning. But the ability, you also mentioned like nonverbal or body language. For example, I think one of the things that I learned that was so confusing with me several years ago when I first started working with individuals from India was the head shake, right? And as I'm talking to them and they're agreeing with me, they're shaking their head right to left. And I'm like, so confused. I'm like, what is going on? Like, they're telling me they understand, but their body's telling me that they don't. And then I had to discover, like, oh, India is one of the few places in the world where the right to left is a yes. We're used to the up and down, right? And the right to left being a no. And I mean, that's just one, I think, of the multitude of examples of differences cross culture that can be confusing. And if it's so challenging, even for us as individuals, A, to interpret that correctly, B, to even know that it exists, and to really get it wrong, are machines going to be able to catch up and maybe even be able to interpret cross-cultural differences better than a person
really hard.
can?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I think it'll get better with human in loop kind of concept. So this is a recommendation. Is it right or wrong? Like, help calibrate the systems as we learn, and help. And the calibration should happen with user preferences, knowing the user personalization. So I think that's why I said that it cannot be standardized. It's like impossible to standardize intelligence. And we can get a little further, like we can get you to like 70% of the journey, to like show you what we most think is possible. But then you have to start by giving that 30% delta. And I think over a period of time, as it learns, like that 70% will become 80 and 90. And at some point of time, it'll become state of the art. So, but I think cross-cultural context is the hardest thing to solve for.
The hardest thing, and probably in some ways even the most necessary. I mean, we are increasingly more global, right? Increasingly a community of oneness, and it's, I think, extremely important that we're able to learn from that.
Yeah.
We're coming to the final minutes of our show, and I'd like to bring it back to Symbl, you as the co-founder, leader. What's it like working for you, and with you rather, and what type of culture have you built, and do you look to keep building?
Yeah, it is so much fun. Like, I work from like 8 a.m. in the morning, and then my team's 50% of our company is back in India. So I'll end up talking to people at like 1 in the night or 12 in the night. But every minute is so joyful. Like, it never feels like you're really working. It just feels like you're building. And I think until everyone in the companies feel the same way, that they're all building something from ground up, we're in a very good spot. And that's like one of the things that we really embrace in the company. We all are self-aware, we connect with each other, we are empowered, we own our own functions, but at the same time, we're all builders. We're all developers, we're all builders, we all want to build things. And that's what we do at Symbl. So it's been a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling. I think the biggest part is the opportunity piece. It's the ability to make sure that there is equal opportunity that you can provide as a leader to anyone, and you have the power to get people from India to US and get them relocated, which I know so many talented people in India. They, just because of visa and immigrations, they never come and get exposed to outside cultures. So it's really fulfilling to know that you are in a position to provide for an equal opportunity and play a role in creating that equal opportunity in the ecosystem.
That's beautiful. What advice might you have for leaders in a position like that who have, global teams or teams maybe specifically on other time zones? What have you discovered that works for you and maybe might not work? How can we learn from that?
I think we need to make every individual in the company autonomous, almost like in a way that they don't have a manager. Like they almost have to work like that. And the more that we can create a culture to give autonomous execution, visibility, ownership, transparency into goals, setting up goals for themselves, and having clear alignment across stakeholders, it is going to make just remove all overheads. And I think that's what we need right now. We're at a time in the entire ecosystem that we all are operating with shorter headcounts in the overall organization as compared to the workload that we're all taking. There are layoffs happening all over the place. People are crunched because of the economy time. And I think there are only two things that really matters. One is employee happiness. Are they really happy? And are they really growing? And then two is, are they all autonomous so that as a business you have lesser and lesser of management overhead?
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense. Lesser overhead, and at the same time, this way of, let's say, small problems getting to stay small, right? An individual doesn't have to wait 12 hours or even in some cases 24 hours or plus to get an answer to maybe like a simple question when they have the autonomy to just go for
absolutely.
it.
And I think like one of the, just to follow up on that, the key for that is to just have a very clear operating principles outlined. And if anyone listening to me doesn't have an operating principle in place, like please write it and share it with your people so that they can create a decision-making framework in their own minds, which is really important because they don't know what's right and wrong until you lay out a framework to have them make that decision. So it's really important.
Especially cross-culturally, I think. The more direct we can have such principles laid out for individuals, the better, right? All across the board, right? Perfect. I love it. Amazing. Well, I think the final question that we have for you today, Surbhi, as we're coming to the last minutes of the show is, well, I guess it's two questions. What do you feel that you've done most right in building out Symbl? And what is one thing that if you could have done it differently, looking back, you would have changed?
Both answers are the same. It's the people. I feel we've got on board a bunch of awesome people that really fit very well with each other. They were unknown to each other. They were at different places, and just bringing them together created so much magic possible, like automatically, which is just beautiful to experience as someone who's built a company since day one. So I think we did right at that places. The places where we can improve is also people, because I think that we did not calibrate how we bring people on board that was personalized to their background. And we keep talking about like personalization and intelligence and stuff like that, but even onboarding has to be personalized, right? Because you may be outperforming in a specific role in a different organization, but when you change context and move to a different company, you might not be at the same place where you were at that time. And so there are different variables that come into picture. It's not just job role. So personalizing onboarding to the needs of people, I think that's really important. I think we definitely could have improved and done better there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those words of wisdom. Thank you so much for the time that you've spent with us today, learning about machine learning, human conversation, the importance of bringing the two together. We wish you and Symbl the best of luck as you continue on your trajectory. We do, unfortunately, tomorrow's show that was scheduled had to be canceled due to, well, inability, personal issues. But we'll hope to get that one back on. In the meantime, you can catch us Monday, 12 o'clock Pacific, for our recap show, where we'll talk about this week's shows and introduce the shows coming up next week. Thank you so much again, Surbhi, and everyone. See you on Monday.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.